I had a kingfisher on the prow of the boat 2 days ago, literally 4 feet from me, just sitting there. So these sort of things you don't get when you're in a house, do you?
For 50 years I've been involved with water one way or another since I joined the Royal Navy. I had injuries and so on that have got gradually worse over the years, but having this lifestyle makes me have a less sedentary life than I would if I lived in a house.
All my life I've been interested in boats. When I was a teenager, my mum joined the family to the Inland Waterways Association, so we learned a lot about the canal restoration that was happening in the 1970s.
In the villages where we both lived, there was no affordable housing. The boat seemed a natural solution to encompass a rural lifestyle, off-grid, low-impact lifestyle.
I'd broken up with my partner and I'd ended up being kind of a certain age and not being able to get a mortgage, and suddenly a kind of a childhood dream came back to me that I'd really like to live on a boat. I really wanted to make the dream a reality.
It was pretty much a lifestyle choice. My wife Jane, a lady came to work with her and invited her onto her narrowboat, and we went for a day, did some locks, and we're pretty much hooked straight away and decided that was the life for us, I think.
For a cabbage.
Cabbage.
Yeah. I spent 23 years in the Royal Navy, and it's the first time I've sort of been captain of my own ship, as it were.
It's a great boat. It's really easy to manoeuvre, and it's small enough to go anywhere. I've travelled from Bath to Yorkshire in it and back.
It's called Splashy Fen. It's a narrowboat. Splashy Fen is actually a place in South Africa, a bit, you might call it the Glastonbury of South Africa. It's quite an old boat, isn't it? 20-something years old?
20-something years old, yeah.
I did think it would be rather fun to have a lifestyle change. A friend had done it, and there was a very nice marina in Reading. And I was a novice, and so gradually I dared myself to go further afield. And I found on one of the trips out to Devizes, I found Bedwin and absolutely fell in love with it.
I like the Kennet and Avon because it's quite rural, and there are certain places along it which are really friendly towards boaters.
Before buying the boat, I was a traveller who lived in a caravan for many, many years, and I've travelled around most of the canal system before I ended up on the Kennet and Avon Canal. An opportunity came up to buy an iron boat, and it just kind of ran away with my heart, and I embarked on its restoration.
It's us and it's our home.
It's kind of an extension of yourself, isn't it?
And people know us.
Oh yeah, them off Splashy Fen.
Them off Splashy Fen.
I don't think it's suitable for everyone. It's incredibly hard work. Winter is difficult. It's not as glamorous and easygoing as it seems. You know, when you walk past, it's very idyllic and quaint. You know, the boats on the water. But the reality of it is, you know, it is hard work.
She works very hard, and I will do as much as I can to keep the thing ticking on. It's about right, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always lots of things to do on the boat. There's always, you know, painting to do or little alterations to make or something, so you're never bored, are you?
No, well, I never get bored. No.
There have been years when it's been extremely cold, the whole canal's been iced up, and I've been cycling along the towpath to work at 5:30, trying not to slip over on the ice and go into the canal.
If you get iced in, that's not easy, because then you run out of water, which is the vital thing to everything. You can't make a cup of tea, you can't make sort of soup or anything, and you've got to go and haul it from somewhere.
Every so often I take my boat to a place where there's a sanitary station or a water tap, and I fill the boat's water tank with water. I get rid of my rubbish and I empty the loo.
There has been a problem lately with the facility at Dundas, and now the building became unsafe. But the problem is British Waterways, who run the canal system, they didn't seem to appreciate the urgency that we need to empty toilets more than once a week, and it took them sort of 8 months to get around to putting a different facility in there.
The services we get on this canal are basic and limited. There are other parts of the country where the management have invested in the facilities, where they've installed showers, they've modernised the toilets and made them accessible for disabled people. They've modernised and made showers and made those accessible for wheelchair users.
It would be really nice to have more water taps so that we could fill boats up in more places. More recycling facilities would be marvellous, and more options to dispose of toilet waste.
I think British Waterways have a bit of a sorry history of their sort of harassment of liveaboard boaters. I don't think they've ever really been supportive.
It's clear that the management do not support the position of the itinerant boat dweller. All the rules the management create are excessive and designed to push people out of an area where they need to be for certain services.
Section 17(3)(c)(2) of the 1995 British Waterways Act entitles boat licence holders to live on their boats without having a permanent mooring, provided that you use your boat bona fide for navigation and you don't stay for longer than 14 days in any one place unless it's reasonable for you to stay longer in the circumstances. However, British Waterways, and now the Canal and River Trust, is enforcing their own interpretation of that, which goes above and beyond what the law actually requires you to do. The current enforcement practice is that they track the movements of your boat by taking GPS sightings of boats every week, and at a certain point they will write to you and tell you that you haven't travelled far enough. They won't tell you how far you have to travel in order to comply. The consequences for boat dwellers is that you will end up travelling distances which put you out of reach of your place of work or your children's school.
In the 9 years we've had a couple of letters for being in a place too long or being in the wrong place. The wording on their official letters can be pretty harsh. You know, not everybody who lives on a boat is in the frame of mind to be able to deal with that and see through it.
Well, that's all right. British Waterways, they've decided that if they put us under pressure, we might choose to change our way of life. So we do feel victimised, we do feel singled out, and we do feel mentally under pressure.
It can be quite challenging to get work when we're moving around constantly. But by and large, on the western end of the Kennet and Avon, the communication links are so good that it definitely helps in working further afield. You can jump on buses, you can jump on trains. And so it's a very good communication network in Wiltshire especially.
I work 40 plus hours a week in Bath as an ornamental iron worker. Sometimes when we have to move further distances, I have to get up extra early and commute further. It's not ideal, you know, it's extra miles, extra petrol, extra time, but it's part of living on the boat.
I'm a blacksmith on the canal. I have two boats. I have one which is our accommodation and another smaller boat which is a workshop. It's quite a small workshop. It's 7 feet by 10 feet. So, well, tiny by most blacksmith shop standards. But it's actually quite a good working space because almost everything's in reach. So it's quite ergonomic. To actually have an open air workshop as I do and just be looking out onto the countryside is just such a plus, really.
Working boats on the canal, brilliant idea. I mean, that's why the canals were made. You know, long before people were using the canal for leisure, you know, it was here as an industry. On the boat there is myself, my partner, and we have a 6.5-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old boy. The 6.5-year-old boy goes to a local school in Bradford-on-Avon. Yeah, if we have to move a long distance away from the school, it becomes a very long-winded operation. It's pretty much impossible to get a 7-year-old, 6-year-old to school in the deepest, darkest winter. You know, walking down the towpath clean. Yeah, puddles are a major attraction, mud is a major attraction, and they seem to have a beeline for both of them. There. It's all a choice for us. You know, no one's forcing us to do this. But in the big scheme of things, you know, it is getting more and more difficult, you know, with things being imposed on us as far as mainly the distance that we have to move. If that increases, things will get really difficult, especially if the males are taking the children to school.
I've got a 2-year-old daughter who's lived on this boat since she was born, and she doesn't really know anything else, so she's very much part of the boating community. Yeah, don't know how I did that.
Is that better?
It is better. I take Robin to her playgroup at the moment, 2 or 3 days a week, which she loves, but I take her on the bicycle and on a little bike seat, and she loves that. In the winter it's a little bit more difficult, so we rely on the local buses and the trains to travel around to get her where she needs to be. So if I can try and keep the boat in the locality, I will do. And that can cause a few difficulties and a bit of tension here and there, but we just try and stay within the law, as is our right to do so.
I think the children have a pretty good time, really. They have a fantastic understanding of nature, Ollie does. He knows so much about canal wildlife. He's really in touch with the seasons and what happens in spring, autumn and winter. You know, because it's there, he sees it every day.
Life on the canal for kids is fantastic. They have a freedom to move around. It's dynamic, so they grow up being flexible. One day the boat is somewhere, the next day the boat is somewhere entirely different. They have a completely new playground to play in.
When I came up to this mooring, I was very mindful of the fact that I was going to be 55 taking on this mooring, and I was on my own on the boat. So I checked it out in the sense that I can take my boat across to the wharf, I can empty loose, I can fill up with water. It's like anything, it's like where you live. If you choose a house that's on the top of the hill, you've got to be aware of the fact that it's going to be a long climb up the hill as you get older. You just have to hope that you can find some way around all these things.
With Barry's mobility difficulties, mooring up can be quite a challenge. But what we've also got to contend with is the wild mooring. Trying to get close enough into the bank to put a plank across was so difficult today, wasn't it?
Yes.
I feel as if they don't really care about maintaining the waterways in a way that waterways users, and by that I mean boaters, can actually use to their best advantage.
I don't really want to leave the waterway. This is my chosen lifestyle, but I'd like to feel that I can approach them at any time and be helped. I don't mean, I need this, I need that, or so on. Just a little understanding that from time to time it's difficult for me to play as full a part as I can, particularly with how we were mooring today.
We did have issues when Demelza was pregnant with Finley. There was a bit of confusion over whose responsibility for the midwife visits it was. So subsequently, we didn't have a visit for quite some time. But when we sorted out that grey area, they were fantastic. The midwives put their hiking boots on, got their rucksacks and came traipsing down the canal, and they were well up for it, which was really good.
Surgeries find it very difficult, the fact that you're not going to be in one specific place, that you're actually going to move. I think they need to be a little bit more imaginative and just, instead of thinking, this is just a complete headache for us, I think they need to actually just think, well, is it really going to be that difficult?